Hey there! In this video, we'll have a look at Cinema 4D. We'll see how to move around in the viewport and how to use the primitive tools and other shortcuts that we have here. So let's begin. While holding Alt and with the left mouse button, we can rotate in our viewport. Once again, holding Alt and using the middle mouse button, we can pan around, and using the mouse wheel, we can zoom in or zoom out. We also have the shortcuts in the top of the window. So we can move, we can zoom in or out, rotate, and we have this fourth option, which is the perspective window. So we have perspective, top, right, and front. We'll see all of these afterwards with an object. Well, let's go back to the perspective window. In the top part, we have the tools, that is, our leaf selection, rectangular selection, lasso selection, and polygonal selection. Let's start with the leaf selection. We're simply going to create a cube and we'll use this button. This one here. It will make the object editable, so later on we'll learn more about this object and the Make Editable button. We'll simply use the point mode that is in here and we'll select the points holding click. That will be the leaf selection. Now we'll see the rectangular selection, so we click outside and select the points down here, okay? We'll just drag with the left button and we'll have the rectangular selection. We'll do the same with the lasso selection. So let's click here and we'll draw a figure in the screen selecting points. And the same way with the polygonal selection. Perfect. Every time we click, it's like on Illustrator and we make a selection. Perfect. In this case, we have used all the selections. Let's delete this cube by clicking this button and pressing the Delete key. OK. Let's create a disk to show you the next tools. Move, scale, and rotate. We have the axis, and what we are going to do first is to move. If we select the top part, we can have the axis in movement. Let's scale. We can scale an object in different ways for each axis. We can see this more clear when we use a cube, and you want to scale it to one side. Yeah, like this. So we are going to go to the scale tool and scale one side of the object. When you have it editable, you can scale the object to the side you want, okay? Okay, this is just for you to see the options we have to move around in the viewport. Move, scale, and rotate objects. That is. Perfect. Okay, let's delete it. Here we have the axis options. We can turn them on or off to lock or unlock any axis. Down here we have the render window. We can have a render preview if we hold click. There are several options to render. We're going to use this at the end of the course. We can try to render here. We'll see nothing at the moment, but if we create a cube and render this region, we will have a cube. Perfect. In this part of the window, we have the tools to create objects. Splines, deformers, cameras, lights, and environmental objects. So, let's begin with the primitive objects. if we hold click here, we can create a cone, a cube, a cylinder, and other primitive objects that come by default in Cinema 4D. So we can start with the cylinder. Every object we create in our viewport is going to show up in our right top window. Every time we create a new one, it will appear here. Can you see it? So we have here the sphere and the cylinder. And if we delete it, it will disappear. Okay? At the bottom part of the window, we have the object's properties. So if we select the cylinder, we'll have the basic property where we can change the name of the object. So let's change it. Okay, here we'll have a couple of layers, but we'll use this later on to divide our objects into layers. Another option is visible in editor. We have two other settings apart from the default one. On, which means that the object is going to be visible in the editor, and off means that our object won't be visible. But it won't disappear from the render, and if we render region, we will see it. If we make it not visible in render and make it visible in editor, it won't appear in the render. Perfect! This is very useful if we want an object to appear or disappear in certain parts of the animation. The next options will be coordinates, scales, and rotation. Here we're going to change the axis. So, if we want to move the object, you can simply do it with the options we have here. And here we'll see how many centimeters it has moved in every axis. X, Y, and Z. Great! If we right-click on the button tab, we reset the object. That is 0 position. We can do the same thing with the scale. So if we want to make this bigger, for example 2, it will be bigger only on this axis, and we can do the same thing with every axis. Right-click and we reset the object. As we've done with the scale, we can do the same thing with the rotation. If we go to the object, we'll see that we have rotated our object in the Z axis. And we can do the same with the Y and the X too. Now we want to modify our primitive object properties. So what we are going to do is go into the Object tab, and here we have the radius, the height. Let's click on Display, and then in the second option, Growth Shading Lines. Okay, we have the segment ports, which defines the number of segments that we can add. This is very important. And the number of segments we can add to the top port. And this is the orientation of our primitive object if we want to change it to a specific axis. We also have the Caps tab. Here we can add a fillet, which is the edge we are seeing there. So let's make it a bit smaller. This is very important to make the object look more realistic. Okay, guys, let's delete this primitive object. And in the next window, we have the spline, where we can create a circle, star, text, and so on. We often use this to create other shapes from our own splines. Later on, in another tutorial, we'll see how to create a shape from the splines using other modifiers. If we move to the next option, we have different modifiers that will be used later on, like subdivision surface and extrude. We can use these to create shapes. So the first one, subdivision surface, is the most commonly used. It gives more subdivisions to our objects. What we have to do is apply the subdivision surface to our object by left-clicking on the cube and drag it to the subdivision surface. And the object will have less polygons to have it smoother or more polygons to have a different shape. So, from a cube, we can create a sphere like this. Perfect! Here we have more modifiers that will be used afterwards to learn more about them. And here we have the deformers. The next icon here is the environment menu. If we display the menu, we have different options like physical sky, which we use to create a sky or a sun like that, to give light to an object. We can also create an infinite floor, which is this one. And even though it looks like it has an ending, it doesn't. So if you render region, you will notice. Perfect. The next icon will be the camera options. If you click here, you can move around using these options we saw earlier. So we can move our camera around. Okay, we can see here the camera. And finally, our last icon in this bar will be the lights. You can turn this on and you will see that it's affecting our object. So guys, like every other software in Cinema 4D, we also have a toolbar where we can save our projects. We can save our project with different sets that we have created, that is, textures or lights. Don't worry about other tabs, we'll see them along the course. See you in the next video.